Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. It truly is a terrific, thankful Thursday's edition of Talk Today as we invite you to be a part of our conversation. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. I always say the camera should be facing Miss Susan as opposed to us in the studio, but with the excellent company of Miss Katina Anglin, we're going to have an engaging, informative discussion. So we invite you to join us for more Talk Today.
Talk Today is brought to you by Fidelity Bank. For all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Also brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile. Saving lives today. Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255. Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. If Miss Susan doesn't mind me saying public again, thanks, because boy, she got put up with me. Imagine putting me on camera trying to make me look good. Ay. Wow.
She's incredible. She does a great job of making us both look good, Dwayne.
Well, at least, with you, she got a lot of good stuff to work with, but
You're too kind.
That is the excellent company of Miss Katina Anglin and her capacity. I sort of given you a new title last time. Today, now I assign you the executive director for the Civics Association, but I'll leave it to you to formally introduce yourself.
You gotta be careful of that because there's an actual registered functioning board.
I know. So, to your board, I'm just in jest, but I think they are like me, very grateful to you and other, sort of civically engaged members of our society who are trying to bring us along to the notion that for a democracy to be healthy, the populace need to be informed and engaged and willing to not just critique from that negative connotation, but to be very, very, constructive in our analysis, very deliberate when we're considering things. And as I look at where we are now in this country, in this region, in this time in history, our actions are going to weigh heavily on how, God's willing, we are 10, 50 years from now, if we're still alive. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, our children and our grandchildren, the environment, the built environment, the natural environment, but also the economic and social environment that they're going to inhabit. So to think that you have that much weight on one's shoulders, it's a heavy burden, made much lighter if we
somewhat educated for the decisions that we make. And when I should say that I have been very vocal as often as I could about the things that were affecting us as a society. And I've always been somewhat politically aware. My father...
Sorry, I should behave. Sorry.
my father, he paid attention to world affairs. I mean, my father was a seaman, and he would come back home, and he would share a wealth of knowledge. He would talk about the difference in cultures. And as a matter of fact, the first time I knew about Muslims and their prayer regime was from my father.
Likewise, yeah.
You know?
Well, from my father, not yours.
Yeah.
I got try. That's too.
Get that clear. we have different fathers and different mothers. We brothers and sisters, but we different fathers and different mothers, brothers in Christ.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
So, Dwayne, my first legal interaction with government, I was 15.
Mm-hmm.
And I had given birth at 14 years and 9 months. I had given birth in January of 1986 to my son. And they told me I couldn't come back to school because I was a teenage mother. I didn't quite accept that. I went to the Legislative Assembly. To the best of my recollection, I think the education law at that time was, 80 cents. And I bought it, and it didn't mention anything about began. And when I graduated from high school, what stopped me from graduating with straight O-levels was because O-levels and CSEs were paid at two different rates.
Mm-hmm.
They had two different fees.
Fees, yeah.
My mother and my father were very instrumental in raising my son. And so a part of that sacrifice was a reduced set of qualifications from high school. But I successfully won my fight with government and was returned back to high school. Now, had I not taken the action I had taken, encouraged by my father,
mm-hmm.
And had I not went for that one piece of legislation so that I could become educated in the law that governed my education, I wouldn't have graduated from high school.
And you wouldn't be, now... Well, I don't want to spoil the plot because that's what I love with your story. Maybe I'll share some observations if you'll allow me as I share with you privately. But we live in a small community,
mm-hmm.
and we know each other. At least we think we do. We know of each other. Sadly, sometimes we're so willing to condemn each other. Transgressions and indiscretions and all. You know who he is and who he married to. And, hey, there by the grace of God go I, right?
Exactly.
But we never see the successes. We never celebrate the accomplishments. We never look at it and say, look at what he has achieved or she has overcome or whichever. That other person for whom we've watched the documentary because they grew up in some great industrialized nation, in rags to riches story, didn't have a pencil or a paper to write on, but look at it now, worth zillions of dollars. Yeah. But opportunity was there and was, overcome hardship. But look at the little guy right down the road who had this, that, and the next thing. And, maybe not be a billionaire, but boy, what a wealth of contribution to our society.
I can speak personally to that, Dwayne, because between graduating from high school and just this 15th of July gone here, my life, with the exception of a 4.5-year journey, my life was nothing short of a horror story. And I will be sharing it a little later on in the year because I really think that we're living in a time where people need to know that God is alive. He is almighty. He is still able to redeem. And He still loves us. And there is nothing that we have done so wrong and so awful that God won't forgive us for it if we humble ourselves and ask. And if we turn from those ways, because there's no sense in asking God for forgiving you for a sin and then turning around, go back and repeating it again. It's kind of like taking a shower and then stepping out clean and going diving in a thing of mud. What was the point? Yeah. You don't need to test whether or not God's going to continue to forgive you. Don't beat yourself up like that just to see whether or not God's going to forgive you. But on the 15th of July, my qualification as a lawyer was confirmed. And we're in COVID-19 times, so they went ahead with the formalities of having said, certificate received on the 17th of July. The graduation will come later on, but that's what the certificate states, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when people, sometimes opportunities are there for us,
mm-hmm.
and we just don't understand how to grasp them. And sometimes it can seem that the help that we need is not around. But it is if we just look closely. And sometimes the greatest blockage that we have between us and our success is none else but ourselves.
None but ourselves can free our minds, Bob Marley.
Right. But then when those opportunities are provided to you and you see them, it is your responsibility to grasp them. And don't just grasp it, embrace it, and make use of it, right? And, I'm sitting in here with you today because I took that journey first at 15. And this is where it has led to. And it is incredible that I'm here today. Not incredible, it's magnificent that I am here today trying to help educate other persons, as many people as will listen, accept, and act on, so that we can be informed citizens, so that we can use the law to our benefit, so that we can help drive the country forward in the direction that is best for us as a majority.
Right. So when we come back from this break, let me invite you to sort of formally introduce Katina Anglin in the capacity in the association, the registered NGO, right?
Yes.
And I'll say it to people, maybe I'll say it when we return, that we had scheduled, paid for a series of discussions months ago. I mean, I just talking about I say that to emphasize the forward planning.
Yes.
Regular discussions paid for by an association related to civics education.
Yes.
Scheduled time slots. Today just happened to have been that date scheduled 6-7 months ago, whatever, however long ago. I got the email.
Today is not by coincidence.
Yeah. But when it was scheduled, it was just give me a date, here's a date. I didn't know that we were going to go through this, house arrest, I call it, that we were under. I didn't know that there was going to be a vote in the Legislative Assembly. This is July. Chances are, would the Legislative Assembly have even been in session ordinarily in the summer? More than likely not. Right? More than likely not. Yeah. This is a summer break. Why I say that is that there are things that happen in our lives that are foreseeable, that we try to plan. We have a contingency plan for the contingency plan. And there are things that just unfold and you have to step back and go, well, somewhere, some of the line, somebody's pulling strings somehow. But to what extent? So maybe we can revisit that, get a formal introduction from you, talk about civics, continue the dialogue, invite the listeners to share, because it's encouraging, it's also inspiring, but sometimes it makes you challenge, your own sort of thought processes and your approach. So I'm excited. I always want to be better. And, if I can't be taller, well, maybe I can be helpful. We'll see. Let's take a pause and take a break. When we come back, more talk today.
Fidelity Bank would like to thank all essential workers. We salute your efforts and thank you for the sacrifices you've made to keep us all safe. During these challenging times we're facing, our top priority is the health and safety of the communities we serve. And while it's true that things are changing rapidly every day, one thing that will never change is our commitment to giving you the best and sound financial solutions to help you during and after the coronavirus pandemic. At Fidelity Bank, our focus will always be you. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Water Authority Cayman wishes to advise its valued customers of planned works to upgrade the water supply infrastructure along Elgin Avenue between the junctions of Elgin Avenue, Hospital Road and Elgin Avenue, Shedden Road. Work will begin Monday, June 22nd and will continue for 6 weeks. Customers in the area may experience water service interruptions during this period. However, as much notice as possible will be provided before the interruption. To facilitate the work, sections of Elgin Avenue will be closed to the motoring public between 6:30 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. with local access permitted.
The Wharf is your only waterfront breakfast and lunch atmosphere along the shoreline. Starts at 7 a.m. with freshly squeezed juices, hot coffee, and your farm fresh eggs.
The unique sunset happy hour and dinner ambience is your obvious choice for your waterfront dining. See you soon for salsa and boogie nights at the Wharf.
Follow us on Facebook to keep in the loop of all the happenings and come and join us at the all-day waterfront experience on the 7 Mile Beach.
But I do have some questions.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program. Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon. Welcome back. Thank you very much for joining us. And we want to engage you. You can draw alongside and agree. You can pull up screeching, with the horns blaring and say, nope, this is my perspective. Or what I welcome from people is they're honest, as much as possible, objective, impartial view. But if they're biased, that's fine too. Put it on the table. Because a democracy, and with the greatest respect for all who come before and those, Lord's willing, who will come after. If in this jurisdiction, if our public funded radio, right, is inaccessible to us, and if those of us who are here don't make it available to the populace, then it's no more than akin to a propaganda machine in some communist nation. Once there's a healthy sense of, respect for the dialogue and discourse. It's a wonderful thing. While I speak to Ms. Katina Anglin and invite her to, as we share during the break, to sort of, this is me, this is the capacity under which, I think to the classroom where the teacher, not the university setting, not even the high school setting, but there specifically, but in the middle school setting, you kind of come through primary school, you got your sort of foundation somewhat, but in the middle school where you're not quite sure who you are and where you're going, and that teacher stands and she says to the class, hey, what do you think about this? Here are things, I'm not going to lead you in a direction, and you start to be able to formulate some thoughts, and then you go home, and in that environment, older siblings, parents, extended family members, many of us now have, which I think, carefully I say this, can be unfortunate, hired help in the homes who aren't given the level of respect, but imbued with so much responsibility, and then there's this instruction, direct and otherwise, and yet the discussion is disjointed. How can you have a functional society when there is this breakdown in all aspects? I maybe I had too much coffee earlier. Maybe there was not enough sugar. I don't know.
I don't think you can get cohesiveness from the fragmentation. There has to be a certain quality of glue and a certain amount of glue that is applied. The Japanese have a practice where when something is broken, they'll glue it back together. And they glue it back together so that they can show that it's no longer the way it was. And that's a very profound lesson, because as we move forward, we need to be able to reflect on, not live in, but reflect on our past and see which paths it were that we took that didn't lead us so good. Which ones would have been better. And the great part about being alive in Cayman today is that we have so much history to reflect on from other nations around us and globally. And now it is even so much easier to access because of the advent of the internet. You still have to be careful with it because there's so much flutter and falsity on the internet that you still have to be wise and do your research and be sure that you get incredible resources, sources, right? And the media is very, very deceptive. And I'm not trying
generally
anything.
speaking, deliberately so.
Yes. So it's, I say to people all the time, not because CNN said so means that it is so.
I actually say now, if CNN said so, question it. I just sorry.
This is the truth, But anyway.
No, you're right. Question, right? Trust but verify.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So perhaps this would be a good time for me to do the introduction that we have mentioned twice, and we have just but we had agreed from before the show that anyway.
Yeah. Well, you can't.
It's a good thing I have a distinctive voice. People say, I knew that was you on the radio. But good afternoon, Cayman Islands. God bless you. and may we continue to pursue our Christian heritage. My name is Katina Anglin, and I am the Public Relations Officer for the Christian Association for Civics and Political Education here in the Cayman Islands. And I am on Radio Cayman today, talk today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks, enjoying yet again enjoying another enjoyable session here at Radio Cayman. And Dwayne, some of the things that I would like to look at today, that I would like to speak about today.
Yeah, and as you said, I just want to say to people that when we think of the planning, I mean, and your coordination with the account rep, Mr. Singh upstairs, in putting forward a series of these public education initiatives through here, it's foresight, but it's also timely. And that way back when your association was being conceived and you got it legally formalized as a registered NGO, and then you set up these series of discussions as a private entity as to what is civic engagement and civics education and the like. I'm thinking we've had these series of discussions. They have allowed me as an individual to, one, because of my job and my personal ethos, I said, okay, we're going to be talking about this thing. Let me, familiarize myself with it. Or B, I think I know, I have seen it before. Let me revisit so that I'm actually
a little refreshed.
Yeah, right. And that's good because you get to learn, you get to understand. But hopefully it also do, for the populace, something else. Challenge us to realize that we don't know as much as we think we know, and even when we do, we can even learn more. All right. I put it in the same vein as Dr. Alexandria Borden when we started the Mental Health Matters show every month. If it's not a public holiday, it's going to be the first Monday of every month. Monday coming, that reminds me, is our discussion. A lot of work in that show designed to give education, to hopefully get people to appreciate the importance of speaking to a competent, qualified individual that is going to be confidential about issues. You don't have to have something wrong with you. You just need to be able to know that you can talk to someone about something and know that there's help available. Just like this, do we know our Constitution? Do we know the laws? So the things that we're going to talk about today as you program, let me make a note. Let me look at it, see if I have it. Okay. Tell me, Ms. Katina, I'm in.
So what I'd like to speak on today, well, first, before I share that, let me say this. You mentioned the word no so many times in your last statement there. And knowledge is power. And there are some things that we have refused to investigate personally and as a community, as a country. There are some things we have just rejected, even when it was brought to us, right? But the more you know, the better off you're going to be. And what I have found a lot of times when I go digging trying to find the answer to one question is I uncover so much of that and that and that doesn't apply to this question here. But within a short period of time, a situation arises and I say, oh, but I remember when I was looking for the answer to question A on such and such a day, I found this material and it said, and I'm either able to recall it or I'm able to recall where to go get it, right? So I encourage people to just go read. If you're able to read, go read something that is valuable, that is knowledgeable, because it is more that you know, and knowledge is power. People disregard, you may see a flyer on a flyer stand, and you think, oh, but that doesn't have any interest to me, or it doesn't relate to me. If you go pick that up, you read the telephone number on that, you know what the flyer is about, right? And you leave from there, and you get a half hour down the road, and you're engaged in a conversation with someone, and they speak about a problem that they're having, and you say, well, if you call the mental health services on 9498600, now, what you read was not applicable to you, but you acknowledged in a solution for the individual who needed it. And that's how knowledge works. It's usable. Yeah. So, in light of the domestic partnership debate that happened Monday to Wednesday of this week. I'm a bit perplexed with some of the political language that is flying and flirting about in the country. Seeing whom it can court. All right? And some of it has great value. Some of it will shake you wherever you are. And the truth is, I don't know how much truth is in all of it. Because some of it, and most of it, hasn't had great discussion on it. But the Domestic Partnership Bill, its origin was from the same-sex ruling in the court, which, if you bring the Domestic Partnership Bill to the public, is automatically going to make it contentious and controversial. But that makes it a highly moral and ethical issue, which even the European Court of Human Rights, the UK Supreme Court itself, and even the Court of Appeal here in Cayman, and every other court that you go to Hague, they're going to tell you highly moral and ethical issues. You deal with them through public consultation as best as you can, and that is, they're talking to the national state about that. Because the European Court of Human Rights in Handicide said that the country the persons who are best suited to make decisions on moral and ethical issues is the national state. There's no way that you can slip sexual desire out from a moral issue. Sexual conduct, sexuality, same-sex marriage. It all falls under morality. It has, and the European Court of Human Rights has judged it that way because it has always handed back same-sex marriage and said the persons best suited for this is the national state because that they are best suited to judge on a morality issue. So I have heard people trying to displace the same-sex argument and say, no, it's purely legal. It's not purely legal. If it had been purely legal, the European Court of Human Rights would have slammed the gavel down on it a long time ago and made one absolute ruling. But then in the same vein, it did, because it said, we leave in this for the member states to deal with, because they're best suited. They know the temperature, they know the culture, they know the people, they're able to poll them. They can do what we can't as a judiciary. The legislator in those member states can poll their constituents and find out how they feel about this.
Can I just ask, and based on that, and if we look at the branches of government, so you guide me in case I misspeak. We got executive, we got legislative, we got administrative, and when we look at the courts in our jurisdiction and the UK as we understand it, separate and distinct from what transpires, say, in the US, the courts can't make law in that sense and say, okay, this is it, now go change it, and that's that. I should say, my understanding is that Honourable Premier, in offering up appeals over decisions in the past, said, listen, our Constitution is very specific. The reason we are, as a government, appealing this ruling of this court, not only because it's a lower court, but because in his mind as Premier, the political leader, as a lawyer, it's fundamental, it's essential that we do this so that there is no question as to who makes laws and the function of the courts. So he's done that, and I think that's very astute. Right? That's what I think. So if he takes that as a compliment, well, yeah, please do, wasn't it? Let's get I'll be serious for a second. And so with that now, when I look at it on our local scale, and you're saying the European Court of Human Rights, saying on this issue and others, we're going to leave it to our member states to do this because you know best. That is the same thing, just on a grander scale. When I think in this jurisdiction sometimes that we don't seem to want to consider that the separation needs to be very distinct and distinctly maintained so that the courts are doing this thing, our legislative is doing this thing, our executive is doing this thing, and there's a check and balance on each of them to the extent that you don't overreach. But yet we are unwilling sometimes to do that.
Okay. I totally agree with you, Dwayne. Lord Templeman said that law is the manipulation of language. Okay? And let that just stay right there for a moment, because we're going to come back to how the Legislative Assembly has manipulated the judgment itself, right? Help me to remember to bring that point back up. But I just want to point out one sometimes overlooked point when people are talking about the separation of powers and parliamentarians and the executive, right? Is that when the ministers of government leave out from the glass house and they go into the hallowed halls, they become parliamentarians.
Yeah.
And what they say in there is limited, is protected.
They are privileged, right?
Privileged, right? Okay. When they come back and they're sitting there, seating there, they're back as the executive.
Same people, but different
roles. Right?
Okay. I know it's a bad time to interject on you and actually hold on. But the boss over there, so you got a break.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy.
Okay.
I don't mean Kathy. I thought it was Susan. Just one more mix. Gonna pause and take a break. Call and share and shine. Be a part of what's transpiring here in the studio. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Green Turtle. Modern solutions to get you through the new normal. Download the Green Turtle app now and top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination. Home delivery of laptops, tablets, phones, accessories, and iTunes and major online retailer gift cards. And now, home deliveries of groceries and courier service. Guaranteed delivery within 2 hours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit their list of products at greenturtle.ky or download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
Like most of you, I'm at home with the family. We're cooking more, washing more, spending more time on our computers, and the air conditioning units are running more than normal. If I keep this up, my electricity bill will remain high. I'm signing up to MyCUC on www.cuc-cayman.com so I can monitor my daily usage. I need to be in control of how much electricity I'm using so that I can manage how much money I spend. Some things need to unplug in this house, and we can't run this AC all day, you hear?
As the community continues to take precautions from COVID-19, it is important to stay prepared for other disasters now that we're in the hurricane season. Here are some post-hurricane safety tips from the Department of Environmental Health. Always separate debris from household garbage after a hurricane. Debris includes roofing materials, tree branches, and metals. All items of debris must be placed in separate piles and must not cause obstruction to roadways or come in contact with electrical lines. For full guidance on post-hurricane safety tips, visit www.deh.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us in the studio as part of our Civics Education Initiative, sponsored and paid for by, now I'll get this right, the
Christian Association for Civics and Political Education.
The Christian Association for Civics, so the Christian Association for Civics and Political Education. Now, if I put that as an acronym, I got a Christian Association for Civics and Public Education.
CACPE.
CACPE? I will find it.
You know, I've been watching a lot about the acronyms that come up and so on and so forth. And I'm like, what else are they going to come up with now?
Yeah, I did that once long ago, right? And someone sent something back to me years later when there was some comment about it somewhere about publicly. And they said, you know, you said it then and we made jest of it, but the amount of acronyms that you can make fun of things. But Katina Anglin is the
Public Relations Officer.
Public Relations Officer. Okay. We're going to get... it's teasing.
You go ahead, listen. I will accept in a bestowment of elevation that no one puts on me, because I know the power of words. So in a blessing that you put on me,
the prayer job is expand you.
Thank you for your blessing.
Amen.
You know, but Dwayne, going back to where we had left off, right? So I had made reference about the Legislative Assembly manipulating the language of the court. So if you remember that the appeal went in because regardless of whether or not all of the members in the House were pro or anti same-sex marriage, 18 members unanimously voted, and the Speaker himself said, if I could vote, I would vote too, right? They voted for the appeal to be submitted because it usurped parliamentary power. What I find very, very concerning is that the petitioners are on their way to Privy Council, and the Legislative Assembly has jumped up and has thrown its power out the window and said, because the court ruled that we must make legislation that is functionally equivalent to marriage, we're going to debate the Domestic Partnership Bill. But the same reason why you tendered the appeal to begin with was because you said that his efforts usurped parliamentary power, and we know that the power to make and amend legislation is in the Legislative Assembly only, and that is there through our Constitution. The part about the Domestic Partnership Bill is this. The only point that the court could find to rule on in favor was the right to family and private life. So what they should have been looking to do was how could they redress the laws. Primary law is fine. Secondary regulations also in some instances would have worked as well. So they could access certain provisions, certain amenities and legalities in the country. But they were supposed to be inside there creating a new set of law that would entitle you to marriage, because the Court of Appeal itself said we don't find where the Constitution allows for marriage. So if I understood the guidance that I was given right, the fact that they turned around and told the court what type of legislation to put in place was again usurping parliamentary power, because you can't tell Parliament how to legislate. So the Legislative Assembly jumped up and said, we got to create this Domestic Partnership Bill because the court said so. But the court can't tell you to do that. Now, the other part of it is this. In Nicholson and Lamb, it's a case of highly moral and ethical issues. It was about the right to assisted suicide for persons who were terminally ill. At the time when I was handed that essay question as a part of my law degree, it was given to me at Christmas time. And I said that my lecturer was an absolutely wicked individual, because who would give anybody a question on assisted suicide at Christmas time? Your whole intention was to wreck my Christmas season. That was just the way I saw that, right? But I was grateful for the question nonetheless, because it dug into some stuff, including declarations of incompatibility. And in that judgment, which is a UK Supreme Court judgment, Lady Hale said that, Parliament has one of three choices. It can amend, or it can create new laws, or it can choose to do nothing. Choose to do nothing simply because Parliament is supreme. Because of its supremacy, it can choose to do nothing for no other reason than they may prefer the incompatible law to an alternative law. This is Baroness Hale in the UK Supreme Court talking about declarations of incompatibility and legislative power. So when I see my legislative assembly throwing its supremacy out the window in the same very event that you fought for it in the first place, it's almost a degree of insanity, right? Now, when we look at the Domestic Partnership Bill, I want to read, let me append to what I was just saying and say that if the Legislative Assembly had brought before it legislation to deal with the right to family life, which was the judgment of the court, then that would have been something completely different. But you bring in legislation to introduce something that is equivalent, functionally equivalent to marriage, which would violate the very spirit of the law of the Constitution, right? And I want to read from an opinion that was submitted by Right Honourable Dame Joan Sawyer. You may remember her.
The former Chief Justice
Yes, and the retired Privy Councillor, Dame of the British Empire. And she says, I have now read the draft bill. Sorry, Dwayne, I'm going to read this in its entirety. This is the quote from Dame Joan Sawyer. It says, I have now read the draft bill.
Forgive me, Ms. Coutinho.
Yes.
I caught up in you. So that we don't get distracted by the break, and to provide a cliffhanger, you want to read it after the news break? Would that be fine?
I see everybody just slap their head and said, oh no, she just started. But let's wait till after the break.
Okay, so go get your popcorn, dip it in some chocolate. When you come back, if you got caramel, add it to it, and you will read
from Dame Sawyer's opinion.
Okay, in its entirety. Please listen to our news and then rejoin us after the break.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have here on the island.
Your voice, your choice.
It is in the best interest of the people of these islands.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
The Cayman Islands Blood Bank announces it will resume full operations at the Cayman Islands Hospital as it closes its temporary off-site location at the Cayman Islands Red Cross building on Huldah Avenue on August 1st. However, donations can still be made Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. and Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. at the Cayman Islands Hospital. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines and news elsewhere. U.S. President Donald Trump has suggested November's presidential election be postponed, saying increased postal voting could lead to fraud and inaccurate results. He floated a delay until people could properly, securely and safely vote. There is little evidence to support Mr. Trump's claims, but he has long railed against mail-in voting, which he has said would be susceptible to fraud. And the U.S. economy shrank by a 32.9% annual rate in the April to June quarter as the country grappled with cutbacks in spending during the pandemic. It was the deepest decline since the government began keeping records in 1947 and 3 times more severe than the prior record of 10% set in 1958. Reduced spending on services such as healthcare drove the fall. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Your voice, your choice, your radio.
The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you. We are a not-for-profit, member-centric plan with a democratically elected volunteer board of trustees representing all sectors of the Cayman Islands economy. We have an all-in expense ratio of less than 1%, over 20,000 members, and $490 million in assets under management. We were the first multi-employer pension plan approved by the regulator in the late 1990s, and today we are still strong, secure, and are here for our employees and employers alike. If you would like to join or require further information, visit chamberpension.ky. And for information as it happens, follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Email admin@pensions.ky or call 745-7630. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you.
Help support survivors of domestic violence by believing them. Being there for them is one of the best things that you can do. Listen and hear what they need. Let them tell their story in their own way. When supporting persons experiencing domestic violence, maintain confidentiality. They have trusted you enough to share their story. Don't share it with others. If children are involved, alert the multi-agency safeguarding hub. Being there for survivors also means staying in touch. Create a code word or emoji, so if you receive or hear that from them, you will call 911. To help them, it's vital to talk to survivors about their options and help them to evaluate each one. And finally, remember that you cannot rescue survivors of domestic violence, but you can support them on their own terms. For additional support, please contact the Emergency Services, the Cayman Islands Crisis Center, the Family Resource Center, the Legal Befrienders Clinic, the Needs Assessment Unit in Grand Cayman or Cayman Brac, the Mental Health Helpline, the Kids Helpline, or the Department of Community Rehabilitation.
Green Turtle, modern solutions to get you through the new normal. Download the Green Turtle app now and top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination. Home delivery of laptops, tablets, phones, accessories, and iTunes and major online retailer gift cards. And now, home deliveries of groceries and courier service. Guaranteed delivery within 2 hours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit their list of products at greenturtle.ky or download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. And if she doesn't mind me saying, Miss Katina Anglin, thank you. Not only for thus far allowing us who may think we know you to share in your story, to be a part of your journey, for being encouraged by your public willingness to publicly say, hey, this, right? And to, the way you've done it with such resolve, but such respect. Now, in this capacity as the, public relations officer, is that correct? The Christian Association for Civics and Public Education, a registered political. Yeah, I should say.
You did really well. The whole thing you did really well.
Missed out word in political.
You did really well. Oh. I still give you an A.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not an E for effort, but A. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
and I was reflecting on the name in the aspect of not just education, but political. Mm-hmm. Because I think too often in our society, we will acknowledge that there's politics in everything, in our PTAs, whether they call it HSAs now or not, in our churches, in our sporting organization, in the work politics, in our families. But for some reason, the politics of politics, we don't want to talk about publicly because, that divide. But that's the place we need to have those discussions, right?
Precisely.
So I'm very grateful that you are willing, not the 6'15", sort of freeing that you out there. A fella told me, asked him how tall he was. He said 5'12".
Yeah.
I said, okay, when you get 6 foot, let me know.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But that's it.
Me and a politician the other night, I told him, I said, darling, if I can get in a fight, I can look for a strong opponent. I'm 6'2" tall, I never did find the smaller person, the little guy, very enticing at all. And in all honesty, Dwayne, there's something called short people syndrome, which you don't have. You're confident in yourself, right?
That's probably we get along, right?
Yeah.
I'm not the little friend. Anyway,
and short people have this need to but because they're susceptible, right, and they know it, and so they will bully you as a bigger person. I've always looked down at them like, okay, I got you. You know, I understand what's happening here. You know, come here. So anyway, perceptions and thing. Anyway, listen. So, before we have too much fun in here this afternoon, right?
So Deem Sawyer.
Yeah, let's get back to Deem Sawyer's opinion on the
and just for people who she was a privy councillor.
She was a privy councillor. She's now retired. She's an awesome woman, but she was also the former president of the Court of Appeal of Bahamas. And the domestic partnership bill was sent to her by Bishop Sykes and the Cayman Ministers Association, and solicited an opinion from her. And she responded, and here is her opinion. And this was submitted to the Legislative Assembly. It was mentioned in Mr. Alden's letter, Honorable Premier Alden McLaughlin's debate to the Legislative, where he mentioned the opinion of Deem Jones Sawyer. And so this is, in full, quoted her opinion. And it begins, I have now read the draft bill from its very detailed objects and reasons to its equally detailed provisions, comparing the proposed provisions for domestic partnerships with similar provisions from other countries. It also makes provisions for amending the existing marriage laws in certain aspects. See clauses 46 to 49 and schedules 1 and 2. In my view, from the very words of the bill, it is clear that it is intended to confer on persons entering into such, quote-unquote, partnerships, the security and benefits, quote-unquote, of a marriage, while not actually calling it marriage. In other words, it intends to accord to persons of the same sex all the, quote, rights and privileges, end quote, accorded to married persons under the marriage laws of the Cayman Islands. If that is correct, then the central difficulty the Legislative Assembly has would be If that is correct, then the central difficulty the Legislative Assembly has would be to constitutionally enact those provisions in the face of the provision in the Constitution that marriage is between a male and a female. As was said in the case of Lador and Bennett, 1939 AC 468, page 482, Parliament cannot evade a constitutional restriction by a colourful device. Or, as Shakespeare said, a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. The opinion ends. According to this, what the legislative attempted to do was pass same-sex marriage legislation by calling it domestic partnership. Until this morning, I asked a neighbour, are you aware of the domestic partnership bill? He said, and I watched him fight to try to find it in his memory. And he said, I think I heard something about it. This is a person who I know was against the same-sex marriage ruling and who confirms that marriage is a union between a man and a woman. So if he had been aware of the domestic partnership bill because of a proper consultation period, what would his position have been? His position would have been against it. One of the reasons why I believe that the legislature dealt with this the way that they did was because they knew full well that they were creating legislation that was marriage in all but a name. In other words, they were legislating for same-sex marriage, and if the public became aware of it, it was going to create a huge outcry. That is my opinion, but it's not only my opinion. It is also the opinion of legislators who spoke along the same lines, and it's also the opinion of many, many other people in the community. But this is part of why we as citizens must stay aware. Listen, WhatsApp is a great tool. But if you use it to read comics, you're going to be as dumb today as you was yesterday when you were reading comics. You need to use it productively. You can call the Legislative Assembly and you can ask what bills that they are. Now, there's a problem with people a problem for people in a community who are not literate. But this is where you have an elected representative. You have the right to inquire of your elected representative what is happening legislatively in the country. So, Bobo, tell me something. Want to go into the House and talk about again soon now? And have him or her tell you what it is that they're going to discuss. Now, Dwayne, I can tell you the truth. When they put the word finance into anything, my interest level goes from 10 on anything else. I hear the word finance, it starts coming down on the scale, my interest level, because I'm not very interested in financial bills. But I still make myself aware of the fact that there's a bill going before the court.
Because it's going to be law, possibly, and have some consequence for the community in some way.
In some way.
Okay. Civically engaged. Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we have to take action. This is our responsibility as citizens of the country to be aware. And then, in our awareness, to ask questions. If you have a political representative who you can't question, I can tell you exactly what to do about that. You find a name on the registration list for voters on the ballot list next election, and you put your X besides any other one but that name. Because if you can't go and question your representative about legislation before the House, that person is not your representative, and you shouldn't be having anything to do with putting them in the House. I don't know who they're representing, but it's not you. Right?
No, great. I was going to ask you something relative to this whole notion that you shared about the representative and the need for public engagement and consultation and education, and the representative making sure that the constituents are timely, appropriately informed. I don't wish to misquote, and I probably could, well, I can if I go to where I have it saved. But I referenced something as I was reviewing today's preparation last evening, the Honorable Premier's comments about leadership and as a representative making sure that, you don't just do what your constituents want you to do, you do what, is legal in all these things, right? Not trying to make his comments sound any more disparaging, and some have already taken them. But what do you make of that? Because perhaps I should. How about, I'm given an extract that says that, he had talked about being a realist and a pragmatist, Honorable Premier. He said that, leadership is not about following public opinion. Public opinion is fickle. It says, if these, in this particular publication, as was shared with me, it says you are a useless representative if you choose to follow public opinion rather than make informed decisions. But how do you make an informed decision if you don't ask your constituents? The people that elected you, well, what is it that you want me? How do you want me to vote on this thing? What is it that you think I should do? Now, granted, as an individual, you may come as the representative in particular and say, okay, we're going to have this particular piece of legislation. It could be about finance. And this is going to mean this. And as a representative, you inform the people and you say, okay, I think, we should vote against it or we should vote for it because of these things. But if you're public and one of whom may be a finance expert and say, well, yeah, that's true, but here is A, B, C, D, and you may have already considered them, but here is a reason why you need to rethink, the way you would vote. And you're still not persuaded. Are you going to go along because you respect the wishes as a representative? Are you going to risk your political career because you're adamant, you're just indignant and so, imbued with your own self that you can decide, well, you know better than everybody else. But again, back to your point in that case, well, if you're not going to listen to me, what the point you're doing there for? Next time I'll find another name. So there are all those consequences. But is there something else then in that comment? I mean, I almost want to ask, but I don't want to be a leading question.
Well, Dwayne, I think we can agree that there is no doubt that he shot himself in the foot with that statement, to be kind.
Yeah, but is it because as Premier, he knows as Premier, his maximum terms are over, so he has there's no real consequence. If you're not elected, okay, you're not elected. If you're elected, you can't be Premier again, presumably.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that's up for debate or not, but I'll leave it at that for now. So you have that freedom and that confidence. I mean, the man.
I can throw whichever darts, blow whichever whistles, wheel whichever axe I want because my end is here anyway.
Yeah.
And I think that's a dangerous perception to have.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it would only be me that would have that opinion, that view of such an approach.
Mm-hmm.
But his closing debate was, I'm not saying it to be disrespectful or anything of the sort.
Mm-hmm.
At times, it was concerning. At times, it seemed to lack from theological exactitude.
Mm-hmm.
And at times, it seemed to be a mindless rant. But there were some, what I would consider to be some dangerous statements that were made in it, such as you don't consult with your representatives, you make decisions as a leader. And I can tell you that I personally seek opinions of people who I believe to be wiser in certain topics than myself. Take, for example, I mentioned just now that my interest on a financial bill will wane. All right? But I know people who don't pay attention to anything else but financial matters in the country. And so I will go and I will ask him, well, what happened about the bill? Did it pass? Oh, it was? Okay, so tell me some more about this. And what is your opinion? How do you think this will affect the country? And I'll ask them a ton of questions because they can give me the whole thing down like this.
They
right?
can distill in your points so that you can get the information you need without being overwhelmed by language that really sometimes makes no sense, right?
Right, yes. So, but I don't understand why he would say, you don't consult with your people as a leader. And then across the floor from him, the last speaker to speak was the youngest elected representative in the House, who had a all-out rant about the lack of consultation and the responsibilities of an elected representative to consult with his constituents. And so this was a scale that just went this way. And for the Premier, having been elected for so long, to have taken the position and made the statements that he should have. And then in comparison to the elected representative from Georgetown Central, and the view that he had on the importance of consultation and proper public consultation. I think that hopefully the Premier did learn something from the elected member for Georgetown Central speech, because there was much to be learned from him in saying so. The Premier also went on and, he said that, you can be sure that by daybreak, more or less, England would have imposed same-sex marriage on us. And he spoke with a degree of certainty. And I did question, and from how he spoke, as though he knew something that no one else in the room knew. Now, if this is so, that he knew something that no one else knew, then it is his inherent responsibility if England does pass same-sex marriage on us. The fault really wouldn't lie with the nine persons who voted no to the bill. The fault would lie with him for knowing a critical piece of information that determined the future of this country and withheld it to the detriment of the majority of the people in this country.
All right. I want to ask you this in order to elicit something else, right? Based on what you just shared, and again, this is stuff that's unfolding now. Some of us may have followed the proceedings in the Legislative Assembly more closely than others and may have an interest one way or the other, whichever, right? But if on one hand, given the emotive side of this particular topic and the seemingly agenda of whomever on whatever side, all that on the table, if on one hand there's a threat that you're going to have to go independent as a country over this, whether that's worth it or not, that's a topic we can discuss if you choose now or whenever. But secondly, if you don't pass this legislation, it's going to be forced on you through an order in council. Is that then any different from what I recall or believe the Honourable Premier's statements were when it came to the position in the financial services sector for beneficial ownership registries and, meddling in our affairs, his assertion that the UK's Parliament, our Supreme Parliament through the UK, legislating for us locally on matters that affect us in this sense. If they can't or shouldn't be doing it in that vein, in financial matters, then why can't they be allowed to do it in this? I mean, I'm just, maybe I don't understand enough of it.
Thank you very much, because it was a point that I was going to present also.
Oh,
but if I remember clearly, I didn't have the chance to pull it up. I think the words that he used was that he would champion the country
to independence over that.
Independence over that, right? So let me see if I can put this now on the other scale and see how this balances out. Because in his presentation to the Cayman Ministers Association at their rally in 2015, or maybe it was 2016, but it was relatively recent. I think it was 2015. He said, "You be assured of this," and I quoted from it on the 1st of July last year, that his government was going to do all. That his government, led by him, was going to do all to defend the definition of marriage as a man and a woman, which then would lead us to this discussion on independence. Folks, come to the table. Let us have a talk. We need to have a talk. We need to have a talk because 63% of you, and with mounting pressure, probably even more at this time, agree that marriage is a union between a man and a woman. I'm the leader of this country, and I have made a pledge to you all from years ago. And I strengthened that pledge with the overseas the beneficial ownership issue, that I would lead this country into independence if there was anything that threatened our stability. And I pledged to defend the definition of marriage as a union between a man and a woman. Perhaps it is time that we now have this discussion about independence so that we can understand fully, or to some great degree, because not everybody's going to understand every point. That's the reality of it, right? Where we are, what history has shown us, what have we learned, and what is our chance at progressing prosperously as a small but powerful nation. Will we survive independence?
All right. You have a caller. Let's join our callers. Miss Katina Anglin. What do you see? It's Miss Susan's the boss. So take the call. Take the break first. We can take a break. I mean, hey, boss, we take the break. Nah, just kidding. Well, you see, she smiles because you're thinking, well, if I have my gloves on, my timer and switch, I'll fix you. All right, respectfully, I enjoy listening. I get to learn. And we're going to pause and take a quick break. We're going to join our callers when we come back. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Fidelity Bank would like to thank all essential workers. We salute your efforts and thank you for the sacrifices you've made to keep us all safe. During these challenging times we're facing, our top priority is the health and safety of the communities we serve. And while it's true that things are changing rapidly every day, one thing that will never change is our commitment to giving you the best and sound financial solutions to help you during and after the coronavirus pandemic. At Fidelity Bank, our focus will always be you. Fidelity, we're good for you.
King Sports Center Art of Fun Summer Camp is back. From July 7th to August 7th. Now, in its 16th year, the Art of Fun Camp is ideal for kids aged 5 through 10 with activities from football, basketball, dodgeball, squash, rock climbing, arts and craft dance, singing, and more. Your child can stay cool while having fun in a safe and secure environment. For more info, email kings.brebanks@gmail.com. That's kings.brebanks@gmail.com or call 946-KING. Like King Sports Center on Facebook, and you can also find them on Instagram or call 946-5464. King Sports Center, providing you with all your fitness, recreation, and relaxation needs.
Is your child struggling with behavioral issues? Are they disruptive and challenging at home and at school? Help them self-regulate and make better decisions in the moment. Support your 6 to 11-year-old to behave calmly. Sign them up for next month's SNAP Camp. SNAP stands for Stop Now and Plan. August's 5-day camp is run by the Family Resource Center using games, fun group sessions, and more. SNAP Camp will teach your child easy and effective ways to remain calm and control their own behavior. For more details and to sign up for next month's $25 SNAP Camp, call 949-0006 or email frc@gov.ky or visit frc.gov.ky today. Important announcement for Caymanian tourism sector employees. The Ministry of Tourism's Displaced Tourism Employees Stipend has reopened for new registrants only until August 7. Caymanian tourism sector employees who have not yet applied for stipend program and are no longer employed are encouraged to apply via the online portal stipend.ourcayman.ky by August 7th. For more information, email stipend@caymanislands.ky.
Talk to Dick. But I do have some questions. Talk to Dick.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk to Dick.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon, welcome back. Thanks for joining us, and thanks equally to Miss Katina Anglin for sitting with us as the opportunity to engage us in civics education. You can never learn and be educated and informed enough. Miss Katina, we do have a caller or two or 27. We'll go to the phones. Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for your patience, for hanging on. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Am I on?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
Bishop Sykes here.
Good afternoon, Bishop.
Hi, Katina. And I was very interested. I've heard you for the last 5 minutes or a few more minutes from that. Just about the participation of MLAs in the views of their constituents. I thought it was a very interesting discussion. And it seemed to me that the Westminster system sort of takes on a somewhat different character when it goes overseas. And that's good, because different societies have different ways of doing things, different in size and so on. I think that the sort of original Westminster system of democracy, basically the general idea is that the representative does tend to be strong in the presentations that he makes, and the opposition MP likewise, or candidate likewise, and then the people in the election choose whichever is the better one. Now, in terms of taking the pulse of the people in regard to different views, I don't think this is done so much in the original version of the Westminster system, but I think it is very, very much part of Cayman culture for representatives to do just that. I mean, remember in the early days they had town hall meetings, which were, very frequent events, and in these meetings, the MLAs members were definitely there to take the pulse of opinion of their people and pay very strong regard to them in the positions that they themselves took. And I think this is a very valid version of the Westminster system. And I've always admired the Cayman way of doing things like that. I think it is very good. Now that is not to the extent that an MLA may never diverge somewhat from, say, the views of the majority of his people, but that may not be on such a foundational issue as what we have here. I think the more foundational the issue is, the more regard the MLA really needs to take for the views of his constituents. That's my view, anyway, and I think that the Cayman way of doing that is something to be retained very much in going forward in our democratic process. Now, of course, Cayman has not been used to having referendums, and the Westminster system itself is not very referendum-minded either, in classically speaking. But more recently, of course, we've had very important referendums in the United Kingdom. The Swiss, of course, have, in their different system, have referendums all the time. They can't pass anything without taking a referendum in their various cantons. So there are different ways that democracy functions, and I think we have a perfect right to carry on the Cayman way in Cayman.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very good. Yeah.
And I think the town hall meetings, which functioned, I tell you, I think for more than just public consultation, because it was only at town hall meetings that some people saw other people and they could get to check and see who had cooked what at home and how whoever was doing and so on. So it was good because it was good for community involvement. And people actually felt that they were a part of the decision-making process. They also got to hear how their neighbors felt about the issues and what issues were the neighbors enduring. And I can tell you that there were at times when persons in my community learned that there were persons in the community who needed help in a particular way, and they were able to provide that help because of having attended town hall meetings. So there's another benefit to that. But town hall meetings also allow for what is called the hard-to-reach participants.
That's right.
So in today's day and age, everything gets sent by WhatsApp.
It's electronic communication only, huh?
Right. How many people are excluded through WhatsApp? You're looking at and saying, well, I have 1,000 people in my contact list, and if I send this one WhatsApp message, it's going to hit the 1,000 through the 4 broadcast lists that I have. But how many people is being excluded from that communication because they don't have WhatsApp, because they can't manage WhatsApp, because technology is far past their ability? Right? Now, take, for example, what happened with the submission process for the Domestic Partnership Bill. You had one of two ways in which to submit your consultation. That was you either emailed it in or you dropped it off at the Legislative Assembly. So let's think about Uncle Joe up there in East End, who heard about the Domestic Partnership Bill. He's a bit confused and a bit concerned about the Domestic Partnership Bill, but he doesn't have any recourse to write his opinion on it. Uncle Joe can barely read properly anyway. He needs some assistance reading the bill. Mr. Austin Harris said in his debate that the bill was so complicated that they had to call for the Attorney General to come and help them to understand some of the legal language and what the intent of some certain passages were. And I paraphrase that part of it. But that's how complicated it was. So sending the Domestic Partnership Bill via WhatsApp to your average citizen was a wasted effort, because if the lawmakers needed legal assistance in understanding it, how is the common man going to understand the language of that bill, right?
This is a criticism of the consultation process that either did or didn't take place, depending on your point of view, which and certainly wasn't given the sort of emphasis that a government bill, and certainly a bill of this
magnitude,
of this nature, should have. And so really, the idea of being of saying that somebody is not going according to the rule of law, when in fact you don't adhere to the, I'm not saying the rule of law exactly, but you don't adhere to the best practice that the law prescribes for consultation, is to be a bit of a downer.
Yeah.
And that if it's really that important, then
we should make all efforts to make sure that as many people as possible are included in and have the opportunity to participate in the.
This is really atrocious, frankly. In terms of government presentation, it should not have been done in that way, and they deserve to have lost it.
Yes,
and they should be blamed to have lost it if anybody's to blame, not anybody who voted against it.
Thank you for your opinion, Bishop. And it was such a faulty process that the deadline for submissions was Sunday the 26th on a bill that was being debated on Monday the 27th. One of the ways for you to drop this, to submit your opinion, was to drop it off at the Legislative Assembly. Either you submitted it by email, so Uncle Joe can't do email. He decides he's going to handwrite his submission. But Uncle Joe lives in East End and he doesn't get down to Georgetown in time for Friday, but the deadline is on the 26th. But Uncle Joe never makes it down to Georgetown in time. So while he has 2 days left, he doesn't have 2 days left because he can't submit it by email. But worse is his written submission, nothing can be done with it because it is closed on Saturday and Sunday, and the debate is being held on Monday. So even if there was a drop box for you to drop mail into at the government administration building, it would have sat there. It would have sat there on Friday evening, but it would have still have missed the submission deadline for 11:59 and 59 seconds on Sunday night. Now, I submitted a second consultation on Sunday night, and I checked because I got some comments back about it, and I checked to the persons, and they said, "No, I didn't see your second submission." I said I sent it in after 11, and the unfortunate part toward this is that within hours of submitting it, the debate began, and so some persons hadn't been exposed to all of the information. Now, if it happened with mine, how many others did it happen with? The politicians did not get input from persons who submitted consultation. How many instances of that do we have? So then, if the process was violated, is the bill even valid? I'm just asking a simple question, not even looking a legal answer to it. I'm just putting it out there for us to even think about. Is the bill even valid? Right? And if there's a legal answer to it, whoever can present that can do so later on, right? Because I never did acknowledge the legality of the bill because I did not appreciate and I did not recognize the legality of the process.
Sir, so as Ms. Katina shared, you bring some excellent points. We certainly want to engage you further, but is there anything else you want to share with us?
Well, I think that the issue is both the fundamental issue of what the bill was trying to do is certainly a moral one and a legal one. I think people misunderstand the idea of discrimination, for one thing. It is really, if you are quite clear that 9 is 9 and 10 is 10, for instance, you can't ever say 9 equals 10. Now, if marriage is marriage between a man and a woman, then say that the people who claim same-sex orientation are discriminated against. They're not discriminated against at all, because they can be married. It's just that marriage is between a man and a woman, if they want to be. Now, there are many people who, even if they're given a constitutional right to marry, would not be able to marry the person they want to marry, because perhaps that person is married already, or perhaps because that person is, within the prohibited degrees of relationship with them in the first place. There are many, many ways, or maybe they have a calling which does not allow them to get married. So there are all sorts of ways, all sorts of reasons why people could not get married. Well, a person who claims to be LGBT and so on, they have exactly the same rights as anybody else to be married. But their habituation is that they do not want to be. And that's the whole question. That's the whole issue. They're not discriminated against. They have the same right to be married, if that is what marriage is. So, why even countenance the idea of changing a definition of saying that 9 equals 10 or 10 equals 11 to if it is not the case? You would never do that. You'd never do that to please some mathematics student who got the wrong answer. And say, "Oh, I have the right to get a tick on my work just because the person next to me got a tick on his or her work." So there's no discrimination at all. Everybody has the right to be married. They can't necessarily. That doesn't mean to say they can be, or they want to be. Now, that, and so this whole legal structure is built upon that misconception. The misconception that in order to give somebody their rights, you have to change the fundamental definition and idea of what marriage is in the first place. And after all, the first purpose of marriage in a society is to produce offspring. As well as the other goods. So this is all nonsense. And so this idea that you can have a functional equivalence of marriage also, frankly, is a lot of baloney. And we have to go to these issues in saying, well, there is a reason for our saying that the Court of Appeal got it wrong. I mean, they got it wrong on that sort of ontological basis, because there is no such thing as a functional. You're saying that 9 is functionally equivalent to 10? Of course not. It is just not marriage, that's all. The way people have been conned into, and the way even the legal profession and the judiciary have been presenting this whole thing is erroneous.
It is.
It is not that anybody is trying to provide hatred or discrimination against certain people. It is not that at all.
Well, certainly appreciate you sharing that, and want to obviously invite you to engage us further. With that, we'll just pause, take a short break, come back with continued discussion. Keep the excellent company of Miss Katina. So please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Green Turtle, modern solutions to get you through the new normal. Download the Green Turtle app now and top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination. Home delivery of laptops, tablets, phones, accessories, and iTunes and major online retailer gift cards. And now, home deliveries of groceries and courier service. Guaranteed delivery within 2 hours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit their list of products at greenturtle.ky or download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile, saving lives today.
Fidelity Bank would like to thank all essential workers. We salute your efforts and thank you for the sacrifices you've made to keep us all safe. During these challenging times we're facing, our top priority is the health and safety of the communities we serve. And while it's true that things are changing rapidly every day, one thing that will never change is our commitment to giving you the best in sound financial solutions to help you during and after the coronavirus pandemic. At Fidelity Bank, our focus will always be you. Fidelity, we're good for you.
I've got some beautiful clothes. I know just where they go. Good and cleaner.
A reminder of the standard 10% off prepay on wedding dresses and gowns, also household items, drapes, bedspreads, area rugs, and more. 10% prepaid discount can also apply to all wearing apparel, $17 and up. These discounts at all our stores. Savannah Countryside, 946-1884. Elgin Avenue, 949-2452. 337 Eastern Avenue, drive-through Rain or Shine, 949-7104. Call our seamstress, Miss Kathy, at 949-2452. Elgin Avenue for all your adjustments and repairs. Puritan Cleaners. You feel good when you look good.
Hi, this is Danny Coleman, Director of Hazard Management Cayman Islands. We are now in the hurricane season, and for information on how to prepare and stay safe, please visit our website, www.caymanprepared.ky. Some top tips to bear in mind, given that we are still in the midst of COVID-19. Please make sure you have a mask and sanitizer, you have food supplies to last for 3 to 5 days, a portable radio, personal hygiene and sanitation items, and medical supplies, and any other specific items your family may need during a hurricane. Make sure you know where you will shelter in the event of a storm. If you have pets, please make sure provisions are in place for them too, as the majority of shelters will not take pets. Please visit our website for more tips and tricks on www.caymanprepared.ky or call us on 945-4624. Stay safe, Cayman.
Talk to Dick. But I do have some questions. Talk to Dick.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk to Dick.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you very, very much for joining us. And thanks to Ms. Katina Anglin, the Public Education Officer for the Civics Association, or the Christian Association for Civics and Political Education. As we were just chatting with Bishop Sykes, Ms. Katina, we took the break, and Bishop Sykes, thank you, sir, for hanging on and continuing the conversation with us. Welcome back, sir.
Yes, I don't want to take all your time, but I just wanted to make a point that I think that what is happening here now in the Cayman Islands is not that we are dragging our feet on anything. What we are doing is providing the vanguard of proper thought about the whole issue.
Yes.
That has been almost lost in great parts of the West, including especially in the United Kingdom, and of course in the United States, which is another story altogether.
Oh.
But what our purpose, if you like, in this particular battle, is not to think that we're hanging on to something that is a failure of the past, but something that is essential for the future.
Yes.
And that, first of all, we are going to be the vanguard for right thinking about this to our region, and God willing, we are going to be the whole region is going to be the vanguard for right thinking about this throughout the West, and we're going to we are going to put paid by God's grace to this nonsense in the years ahead. So that if God allows any future generations, if God allows any future generations to our society and to our world, then they will be safe rather than being, continually threatened by these things, which even get to the stage of teaching this nonsense to 3- and 4-year-olds.
And I think that is.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Sorry about that, Bishop Sykes. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think when we talk about the fleshing out of the matter, right, is a lot of people don't realize how much really comes with the passage of same-sex marriage legislation, because when they start talking about equality in all things, they turn this into a whole entire education program. And so your children are taught in kindergarten. People may have heard Miss Juliana O'Connor talking about the relational sex education program curriculum in the United Kingdom, and how she had been approached by the Minister for Education over there about implementing it here. Well, children are children. They get all caught up and attracted by bright colors and shapes, and they believe in butterflies and fairies, and they believe in unicorns and a whole bunch of different things. And life as a child is free from worry. But I mean, a broken crayon can signal the end of the world, especially if it's their favorite crayon, because it just can't be fixed back. And the only how you can remedy that is if you go buy a whole new box of crayons and come back and show them that, hey, look, you got a whole new box of crayon, and here is your favorite colored crayon. But they still look over at that broken crayon, right? Because that's just how children are. And despite what any educator may want to tell you, children are not interested in learning about how sex works. As a matter of fact, they will say, ew. They see their parents kissing, they say, ooh. But a part of the comprehensive, which is also referred to as the relational sex education program, is teaching them about homosexual sex. So you got kindergarten kids learning about how to have anal sex. There is nowhere on God's green earth that you can tell me, and yes, this is God's green earth, that is part of an education program. No, that's a part of an indoctrination program. You grooming children from a young age to accept sexual behavior of a perverse nature, so when it happens to them, when they engage in it, they think it's okay, it's good, and it's normal. And that is truthfully the only thing that you can be grooming a 4-year-old child for when you're talking about you're going to teach them about anal sex at 4 years of age. They can't count to 6, but they're going to understand about how to insert. Let me not get too graphic. Sorry. Let me not get too graphic.
Let me read this. So we have this particular WhatsApp we want to share, and one of our astute listeners and engaged says, it sounds like you have another interesting show. So as regards your current guest, I have had a comment to put to her from, which is as follows. Made a statement that judges do not make law and that this is the remit of the legislators. We may disagree, however, with respect. The fact is that in interpreting the law, judges effectively make altered versions of laws, and the effect of this is to change them quite substantially. In a basic sense, she's correct, but I put it to her that in the true sense, her statement was not accurate, and I think it's important to make that distinction. Now, we've heard much about that. So
what the individual is referring to is a process called the declaratory theory, and their responsibilities as judges is to read the law in such a way as to try to determine the intent of Parliament, because they're not privy to the Hansards of Parliament. There was a unique case called Pepper and Hart, in where there was extensive debate about judges' rights to access to Hansards, because it's always been barred. Their duty is to read the law and interpret the intent of Parliament as it is before them when it was being made and laid in front of the Parliament. So in so doing, they have a couple of different ways that they do this. They can read it up, read it down, read it in, or read it out, right?
Yeah.
Okay. At the beginning of each law, there's a introductory text. It tells
the
you...
preamble to the Yeah.
Yes, and it tells you what was the mischief that the legislator was trying to remedy, or what is the purpose of this legislation? You know, what policies is it trying to meet?
Or kind of like what Mr. Ezra used to say about his government, say, you know, there's a solution to try and find a problem for.
Somebody told the House that this domestic partnership bill answers the question that was never asked. But anyway, so yeah, but that is the process that he's talking about, right? But there's a boundary to that. When they're unable to find a way that they can read this to make primary law compatible with the Constitution, then they have to issue a declaration of incompatibility. All right? Once they see that they are not able to read the law in such a way as to make it compatible with the Constitution, they can't go any further than that. They have to make the declaration of incompatibility. They hand it out to the legislature. They say this law is incompatible. It's now in your court. You have, through remedial orders, options that you can take. You can, and they don't even have to go any further. They don't have to tell the legislature nothing about it. They only just need to hand it out that it's incompatible and incompatible for these reasons. The legislature takes the declaration of incompatibility and it decides under its powers whether or not it's going to amend the law, whether it needs to create new legislation, or whether it will do nothing.
Just keep it as the way it is.
Keep it the way it is.
All right.
So the power to make and amend laws still resides in the legislature.
Which comes back to why the appeal, the Honourable Premier was... So let's talk about that after the break again, and maybe revisit that comment that you shared earlier about, is the Premier aware, or, you know, maybe something... Talk about some other things. I love civics education, all right?
Yes.
We hit the news break.
Okay.
And we hit pause for a second. Well, when we come back, let's play again.
Okay.
Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Your 2 p.m. headlines brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile. Saving lives today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have, on island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice.
It is in the best interest of the people of these islands.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
The Deputy Governor says it's important to government to create a safe and fair working environment for the civil service. The Honourable Franz Manderson tells Radio Cayman government wants to stamp out behaviours in the workplace by an employer or another employee that makes the receiving employee feel fearful, distressed, humiliated, offended or powerless. The policy went into effect on Wednesday. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines and news elsewhere. Herman Cain, the Republican pizza chain CEO who ran for president in 2012, has died after contracting COVID-19. 74-year-old Mr. Cain was hospitalized after being diagnosed with the disease earlier this month. He was a supporter of U.S. President Donald Trump and is one of the most high-profile Americans to die with the virus. And Swiss prosecutors have launched legal proceedings against FIFA president Gianni Infantino. It's in relation to an alleged secret meeting the head of World Football's governing body held with the Swiss Attorney General Michael Lauber. Lauber last week offered to resign after a court said he covered up the meeting and lied to supervisors during an investigation by his office into corruption surrounding FIFA. Both have denied any wrongdoing. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Your 2 p.m. headlines brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile. Saving lives today.
Green Turtle. Modern solutions to get you through the new normal. Download the Green Turtle app now and top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination. Home delivery of laptops, tablets, phones, accessories, and iTunes and major online retailer gift cards. And now, home deliveries of groceries and courier service. Guaranteed delivery within 2 hours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit their list of products at greenturtle.ky or download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile, saving lives today.
For the latest in news and information,
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
your voice, your choice, your radio.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. And again, thanks to Ms. Katina Anglin. The public, would it be the public education officer? The public education director?
Officer Dwayne.
See, officers sound like you should be in uniform and deployed by some government agency. But as a registered NGO. NPO.
Mm-hmm.
So NPO and NGO.
Non-governmental and non-profit.
So the difference in legal stand, there's a difference NGO versus the NPO. I mean, I know that okay.
Yeah.
And what constitutes an NGO versus an NPO?
If I remember correctly, this one really puts me on the spot. But if I remember correctly,
come back to another time.
The NGO is funded
by government.
Yeah. But it's not managed by government.
Yeah.
So.
Boy, she's smart. 6'2", I mean, all our brain, I tell you, fine. No, I'm sorry. You were a boss, man. You were a boss.
You're too flattering, man.
The thing is that I guess why I was leaning towards sort of engaging in that at this sort of segment is to get organizations and entities to formalize themselves on the relevant legislation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they go down and get registered. The process is easy. Mr. Innes and his team do a fantastic job getting people to get through the process, and it doesn't have to be costly and prohibitive. There are many ways in which to go about it so that you become registered, legal, compliant,
yes.
but recognized so that you can do things under the border politic as opposed to the assembly of these, individuals, as it were. And it's not about credibility and carrying weight, but it's about organization and maybe through that a level of influence. But that's
and there will always be more respect for a legally registered entity than for an unofficial body of persons, right? The body of persons may be greater in number, and that will carry heavy weight. But at some point, a body of persons is still going to need to come to a registered entity and say, I need to use your letterhead, or because it will require some things will require recognition under law of a registered body. Government will want to hold some board member, in some way, somebody has to be responsible for this, because if you want to be represented and you want to push certain issues and stuff like that, there needs to be some degree of accountability.
But that accountability should not only be from a government or an enforcement, but it should be from the public
as well.
Yeah.
Yes, because let me tell you, if you want to see something run amok, you leave registered bodies. So I said on, but I didn't mean on, I meant you leave registered bodies, NPOs, alone without a check and balance by the public to see whether or not they are meeting their promise to the public. You can have communities falling apart while government thinks, hey, listen, I just contributed $16,000 to this program working in this community, and it's doing a great job. And I can go ahead and I'm going to applaud the current government for the 2017 NPO law revision. A lot of people took it that, that's so crushing. It's called accountability.
Yeah.
And you're collecting a lot of money. In a lot of instances, they are using youth as a way of sourcing money because nobody wants to say no to helping a child buy a meal. And I'm just using that for an example, right? But helping a child in a way. And so the precept of using youth to accrue finances is a widely abused concept.
Well, that's the thing. We see it everywhere, and even now, with this opportunity by so many, even legitimate entities to exploit, to overemphasize, to try to position themselves as if they're more important. But we also see the charlatans coming up and say, hey, we're doing this. Send us all your goods and your money and your resources, and then they use it and the like.
Yeah. Dream, I just love talking to you because we compass so much stuff, right? But I want to look back at when we left off from the break. We were talking about how the government, how the separation of powers between the judiciary, the lawmaking powers, judiciary, ability to read, declaratory theory of the lawmaking powers for the legislature and the declaratory theory for the judiciary existed, right? That brings us into the discussion about the rule of law. Here's another problem I had with the Domestic Partnership Bill and its debate. I think it's Standing Order number 35 of the Parliamentary Bible. Says that the legislature is not to debate legislation pertaining to a case before the court. I understand. Sub judice convention.
Right, okay.
Right? So if the government, led by the Honorable Premier, can explain to me how this bill got into the Legislative Assembly, I just need an answer. How you violated your very rule that you operate under, because you didn't have the right to bring it before the legislature. And don't come tell me the story about because the court said so, because we already been down this road already for the morning. The court cannot tell you what legislation to make, and it cannot tell you when to make it. And I'm going to show you something. People talk about the ECHR and they talk about, legislation in the UK and how they're going to throw this thing on us and all of this, okay? In 19 years ago, a man named Hearst sued the UK. He was a prisoner. Even after he finished his prison sentence, they kept him because he was a threat to the public. And he sued them for the right to vote. His case went all the way to the European Convention of Human Rights. 19 years down the line, they have still maintained the disenfranchisement of prisoners to the right to vote. Because the UK says, ECHR rulings are highly persuasive but not binding. You see, they cherry pick how they want to apply the law. This is what's happening to us right now, and Caymanians need to understand this. What we see happening is nothing else but a manipulation of language. I read a text this morning. So let me just rehash what has happened in this Domestic Partnership Bill so far, because when I get through talking about the governor and his powers, I should be a bit relieved of my frustration by that time. But we have a Domestic Partnership Bill that is marriage in all but a name, which was an offence to the spirit of the Constitution and an affront to the public conscience, that did not meet public consultation, that had a flawed submission process, was barred from debate in the Legislative Assembly, and the governor of the Cayman Islands decided he was going to throw his 2 bits in on it as well. I have learned as a Christian that I must be respectful to my leaders. But I have also learned as a Christian that I must be wise as a serpent while I am as gentle as a dove. We are in a constitutional arrangement with the UK. I sent you a link to UK Parliament. And it starts off in part 1 talking about the constitutional relationship. It says that overseas territories are not constitutionally part of the United Kingdom. They have separate constitutions set out in order at council. All right? That's the first part of it. We have a codified constitution. When you're going to get in a battle with a constitutional point, and the ruling comes back in favor of the Constitution, which is the highest law in the land, the governor of this country should take the position of standing for the Constitution and all that it represents, because the Constitution affords protection to everybody in the country. So to go talking about it was a sad day in this country. Which sad day? Which sad day it was in this country when my Constitution were held up? And the partiality that I see that the governor is playing with the LGBT versus my prescribed religious rights. I have the right to religion. So when you start attacking my Christian faith, I can take it very personal, not just because that is who I am, but because you're violating my Constitution that has my freedom of religion, freedom of thought, freedom of conscience, and the right to marriage between a man and a woman to marry a person of the opposite sex. It also has in there protections for my cultural rights. I have the right to live in an environment in which I am integrated. I grew up here. I spent the last, I'm going to say nearly 50.
Let's see.
Nearly 50 years in this country, living in a culture, in a setting, a social setting that while I recognize that gays and lesbians and even transgenders, because my cousin John, he used to dress up like a woman too, you know. He was a unique guy. They were part of our community, but none of them came and tried to force me to legalize something that is not normal and invalidate me in my normality and the rest of mankind. Because when you come and tell me that homosexuality is normal, you are then telling me that heterosexuality is the abnormal. Because those two things are polar. So we are invalidating the existence of mankind in saying that heterosexuality and the reproduction, that procreation that happens as a result of heterosexual behavior, or is likely to result, is an abnormal process and existence. I don't know who else won't be invalidated, but certainly not me.
All right. Final break, Ms. Coutinho, and then we'll come back. We'll, do our best to wrap it up, put a bow on it, and post it. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Green Turtle, modern solutions to get you through the new normal. Download the Green Turtle app now and top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination. Home delivery of laptops, tablets, phones, accessories, and iTunes and major online retailer gift cards. And now, home deliveries of groceries and courier service. Guaranteed delivery within 2 hours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit their list of products at greenturtle.ky or download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile, saving lives today.
Mommy, have you been taking your medication? No, I think I forgot to pick it up. Your doctor prescribed it for a reason, so you should be taking it regularly. I know, Chidi. Thanks for the reminder.
If you are elderly or vulnerable and need your prescription delivered to your home, contact the Health Services Authority Pharmacy at 949-8600. Taking your medication when prescribed is important to your health, and your health matters to us. For more information about our pharmacy hours and locations, visit hsa.ky or call 949-8600.
This is an important public service announcement. The Standards in Public Life Law has commenced, and all persons subject to the law are required to file a declaration of interest by this coming Thursday, 30th of July, 2020. To determine if you are required under the law to declare your interest, visit www.standardsinpubliclifecommission.ky. Again, the deadline for persons to submit their declaration of interest in accordance with the Standards in Public Life Law is this coming Thursday, the 30th of July, 2020.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. And as you listen, hopefully it will encourage you to become engaged. If over your dinner table with your family, perhaps over breakfast with your friends, perhaps as you're jogging and exercising, and you can still, unlike some of us, we can't talk when we're running because we're trying to catch our breath, but maybe as you're cooling down, as you're having conversations, continue to do it in an informed, civilized manner. With that respect, publicly again, Ms. Katina Angley, thanks for the civics education, the political discourse, but the invitation for all of us to understand the importance of civics and knowing our representatives, understanding why we think they're elected and what they should be doing and the like. So very much grateful now. In the, slightly more than 10 minutes remaining, we invite you to continue to share with us.
So when we left off, Dwayne was talking about the governor's position in this whole thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? I want to believe that before he got here, he knew he was coming to the Cayman Islands. He was coming to a nation, I imagine. He knew he was coming to a constitutionally recognized constitutional country. Mm-hmm. All right? One of a constitutional relationship with the I want to believe that he knew he was coming to a country that had a constitutional relationship with the UK. Sorry, I got a little tongue-tied there for just a moment, right? But and that's because I'm not perfect. And I don't pretend to believe that I am perfect. And I do make mistakes. And sometimes I love when I make public mistakes because it goes to show other people who say, oh, I can't do it because suppose I make a mistake. Okay, you recover from it. Just
bounce back, man.
Just bounce back. Just go on, And so he knew something about where he was coming. And if he didn't read it before he got here, the first thing he should have read was the Cayman Islands Constitution. Yeah. And I know that a lot of people make reference to the Cayman Islands Constitution and its preamble of being a nation of Christian values. But it's not just in the preamble. I'm going to thank all of those, including that same Bishop Sykes I got off the phone, and Mr. Denny Warren and Ms. Juliana O'Connor, even the Premier himself, who helped to frame the many others, Mr. Cheyenne O'Connor and Mr. Al Ebanks, all of those who contributed to building the Constitution. And I'm sorry for anyone who I did not personally name out. They included it as an article. Mm-hmm. So you can't even tear the front page off and throw away the preamble because the Constitution still declares us to be a nation of Christian values, right? So one of the first things you're supposed to look at is in your capacity, your diplomatic capacity. Why bring an affront to an absolute right, which Article 10, the right to freedom, thought, and conscience, and offend the people of this country by further driving divisiveness and talking about inclusion. But because I'm a Christian, you want to chop my right leg and my left arm off? After you decapitate me? And then be talking about diplomacy? And you pitting one section of society against the other because my elected representatives went into the House and voted their conscience. Some of them said they were voting their conscience. Others stood up and spoke about having consulted, taken part in the democratic process, consulted their constituents. The junior in the House, he took it the furthest. The elected representative of Georgetown Central took it the furthest. And you can publicly slam my legislative assembly because they are upholding the rule of law and engaging me as a registered voter and as a citizen. I am a Caymanian first and foremost, and then after that I am a British Overseas Dependent Territory. And if you ask me personally today which one of those two titles I would rather to hold, I am a Caymanian. and I will remain a Caymanian. I have a British passport, and I don't use it as a form of identification. I use my Cayman Islands passport as my form of identification. I am a Caymanian, and I am proud to be a Caymanian, and I don't care what anybody else wants to say about Cayman. I'm a Caymanian, and I am proud, okay? And when people take the sledgehammer approach that has been taken by His Excellency the Governor and a shadow minister from the UK, I want to read that for you, please.
Okay.
I don't take favorably to these type of things. You see, I never bullied nobody, and I didn't like being bullied. And while I had a certain compassion for small people, I'm not talking about Mr. Roper in his size. I'm not making reference to that. I'm talking about people genuinely of small stature.
Yeah, but you're 6'2", yeah. So.
Everybody else appears to be a bit shorter. I never bullied nobody.
Yeah.
You understand? So when people try to come and bully me, in my simplicity, in my commonality, and think that because I'm a Caymanian in the Cayman Islands, and the majority of people in this country are politically unaware, and you want to start throwing statements around because you want me to react in a certain way, I don't like that. I don't like being bullied. And they need to stop it. They need to grow up and act like adults. This is a statement from Shadow Minister. Let me find it here. Pardon me. Cayman Islands same-sex partnerships. Following, and I quote, following the 98 defeat of the Domestic Partnership Bill in the Cayman Islands, a British overseas territory, Shadow Foreign Office Minister Stephen Doty MP said, but realize this is a shadow minister. This is not the minister for Foreign Office. This is his shadow. Despite the and I quote, despite the welcome efforts of many, it is deeply regrettable that the Cayman Islands Legislative Assembly has not passed this crucial bill. The governor is right to call it a sad day for the rule of law in the Cayman Islands, and most crucially for the LGBT plus community there. The LGBT plus all the rest of the alphabets it means. As well as those who move to live, work, or holiday there, with basic human rights that would be upheld in the UK not being recognised in Cayman. This situation is no longer tenable. If the Legislative Assembly continues to deny basic rights to some of its citizens, then the UK ministers must act urgently to ensure the Cayman Islands complies with the rule of law and its responsibilities as a British overseas territory. It is time that all British overseas territories ensure legal equality for LGBT plus people. Dwayne, they might as well have kept that message in the United Kingdom and not have bothered me with it. Because I don't like bullying. And really what this message is saying to me is this. Otherwise you swallow this jagged pill, or I can beat you with this heavy stick. Here my answer to you is this. I don't have to do anything today. Because you gave me the right to request independence, and perhaps this is the thing to drive us to the table to sit down and talk about independence. Who are we going to serve? Are we going to serve the Westminster Parliament? And I say Westminster Parliament, you're not the Queen, and I can tell you why. The Queen is the defender of the faith, and she herself says that marriage is a union between a man and a woman. So accepting LGBT demands is not a part of the Queen's ideology. It's not something that she supports either. She didn't even go to her own cousin, gay wedding. She was absent from that. So I can't involve her in this. So I'm going to carry it straight to where it came up from. It came up from Westminster Parliament. Them or God. I don't have much of a choice with that, you know. I serve the Lord God Almighty Jehovah. I live in a country that is constitutionally a nation of Christian values. Are we perfect? No. But we're still a nation of Christian values. And the Constitution not going to change on that point. The world is going to come to an end, and we're still going to be a nation of Christian values, and anybody who want to go fight with God, go ahead. I'm not taking up that fight. This is a shadow minister who sent a message down to the Cayman Islands that the elected representatives of this country voted their conscience and voted according to their consultations, who obeyed the rule of law in those two instances with an illegal bill that was before the legislature, and this the message that they want sent from England to threaten me with a big stick over my head. And then what am I supposed to still continue to do? Call you my good mother? Abusive people not supposed to be in charge of children. You see that every time you carry an abusive mother to court, you take her children away from her. And it's time that we as Caymanians grow up and come to the table and say, come, sit down. Let's talk about moving out of this house. Let's see whether or not I am financially stable too. Have I learned enough lessons from you, mother? Do I have enough guidance around me? What are the pitfalls if I move out now? Can I pay my own electrical bill? Where will I get food from? Oh, and by the way, Mom, are you still going to protect me? Or will I still have to pay you that lump sum of money every time your ship come into port? Because I heard a discussion once on the radio by a man in this country who deals with the Constitution quite often. And one of the things he put forward was, well, we don't have a defense force. I want everybody to realize something. We're 76 square miles on this little country here, this little rock here. How much force do you think we can build up that we could keep Cuba, Jamaica, or any other surrounding territory out of this country? Let's face this fact.
Okay, we're back in Vietnam.
Come on, let's talk about this. Let's get over the fair and let's get this discussion to the table. Yeah. Because you're going to still have to pay England if she pulls her army ship anyway into our waters for our defense, whether or not we are British dependent overseas territory or independent.
So let's maybe have, as part of the civics engagement and education, discussion on independence and the like, and whether this thing is just another thing to push us further and further into that notion of making an ill-informed, ill-timed venture into independence and then be another failure as a former territory. But for another time, we got to soon wrap it up. Quick thoughts?
Just one last point I want to point out about the governor's powers and the UK Parliament right to impose law here. We are a devolved assembly. External matters lies with the governor. Things that will threaten our national security. That's his. Vast majority of lawmaking and decision-making in this country is internal, managed by our legislative assembly. Marriage happens to be one of those things. Unless they are going to recall our constitution in its entirety. And England will not look very, very good to the rest of the international community if they take such a drastic act. And they're too proud and too diplomatic for that. So they may want same-sex marriage, and they will want to bully us into same-sex marriage. But I'm going to ask Eric Caymanian today, don't be afraid. Be brave and be courageous. For the Lord your God, He is with you. He will deliver you. God bless you, Cayman Islands.
Amen. Ms. Katina, thank you very much. Ms. Susan, thanks. Tomorrow's Friday. So great things happen on Friday, just like they can on Monday. Well, please join Mr. Art in the morning for the record. If I can find my way into town, well, I just get. He does a fantastic job. I learn a lot from it. So please be part of the engaging discussion for the record. Come back for talk today after the midday news and midday meditation. And I'll have a little change of discussion slated for tomorrow. I'm going to either go with plan C or plan D. A is postponed. B, well, that's not going to happen. So let me see what C and D could be like. Plan for contingency plan, but it's for tomorrow, and I want you to be a part of it. I'm leaning heavily now for an open mic session, because I want to get some of the comments from people. If they only have the courage and the bravery, as you ask, to call in and share publicly what they've been in and deleting me with privately, I want to hear. I don't care if you'd hear there or anywhere. Say it publicly so that we can show that we have a healthy democracy
That's
and,
right.
And at least, you know, but that's tomorrow.
Okay.
Go home, get some cassava cake if you can.
I forgot to bring a bottle of mango jelly.
No, you don't have. I get it from him.
Bring it with me this time.
I go, Mr. Buggins, and get bread and come to you. All right, Miss Susan, thank you very, very much. To the rest of us, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Fidelity Bank. For all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Also brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile. Saving lives today.
Shaken yet standing firm. This is Radio Cayman in the